Hello and welcome to the Medical Affairs Dialogues. Many of you know me as a medical affairs leader, but in my past career, I have been a pediatric oncology scientist at the Cancer Institute of New Jersey. And currently, I'm a strategic partner in a company called Synergy Health Innovations, where we bring in innovation in the clinical trial space. So, because of this exposure, sometimes I talk about medical affairs and zoom in the industry, but sometimes I zoom out and talk about healthcare as well. Recently, I spoke with my guest and we connected on patient centricity. So, I invited her to talk in this podcast about not only our experience as a provider, but also as somebody who's experienced healthcare during a crisis time and talk to us about it and elaborate about it on her experience in her country and in her own environment. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome our guest today. Our guest for this episode is Dr. Anna Titkova. She is from Ukraine, but currently she resides in Poland. And I'm so excited to have her as a guest. Welcome to the episode, Anna.
Hello. Glad to see you. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great honor for me to speak with you, to be your guest, and to touch this important topic of our patients, of our patient centricity, of our healthcare system, and especially how we can work, how we can help each other during the crisis that may come. We do not know when and where.
Absolutely. Cannot agree with you more. I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to my audience first. Anna is a physician, researcher, an associate professor with a PhD, MD, and MBA, and has advanced training through internships at Harvard and Yale universities. She is the founder of Prasha Ukraine LLC and Prasha Clinic Ukraine, the country's first SMO clinical research site and part of the international Prasha network within the NUCA group. She leads a clinical research network that collaborates with 10 medical institutions across 3 regions of Ukraine, advancing high quality clinical trial operations. Since 2022, she has combined national leadership with international responsibilities, supporting clinical research activities across Prussia's network of sites in 8 European countries. Thank you, Anna, for being a part of this episode, and thank you for being, a guest. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you.
Our topic for today is crisis proof care. Why patient centricity should drive healthcare. Anna, before we go into more deeper and more serious questions, I want to open the stage and the platform for you to share your story, share your career journey. What a career, and how did you navigate through the challenges that you encountered while creating this career? So please show the real person to my audience and share your journey. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you once again for this question. So, actually, as you said, my career started as being a simple doctor, a medical doctor, then a cardiologist in the hospital in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, that's the city in the eastern part of Ukraine. Then I became a scientist. So, as usual, a lot of doctors who have some good results in their education, they're going to the scientific path. And for me, it was like something natural, and that must be in my life to receive all of these titles, scientific degrees in my medical career. And in 2017, I started my experience and work in clinical trials. And actually, all of this period of time, my career was focused on improving patient experience, especially in these healthcare innovations and then clinical trials. And one of the biggest challenges I saw was that many systems, they were designed around processes, but not around the daily reality of a real patients. And especially, for example, in clinical trials, like my main core of activities and the most beautiful part of my life spent now in clinical trials, we have such an examples. Patients are often expected to travel long distances to their research sites. They
Mhm.
have this repeated paperwork. They manage complex schedules while already dealing with serious illnesses because everything is structured, developed, created around the processes, but not around the patient journey. As an example, in clinical trial. And I learned that even small changes like simple, better communication, remote monitoring, some simplification of digital tools, that they can make a huge difference in how supported patients feel after all. And my approach was always been to listen closely to these patients, to make sure that healthcare works with their lives but not against their life. Then, as you said, in 2022, when I created this clinical research site, when we started our operations on the territory of Ukraine, we gave this possibility to patients to come to us and to be a part of the clinical research field, to receive this innovative treatments. Unfortunately, the war came to Ukraine. And it was a tough time during which I was forced to move from Ukraine, from the eastern part of Ukraine, where I was and where my family and all of my home was. I moved to Poland and started these activities to maintain Ukrainian operations, not to leave our patients there, not to leave our research teams, our staff in our clinic, for example, that we've got there in Ukraine. And this experience taught me that leadership during the crisis is not about having all of the answers. You haven't got them at all when it starts. You have only questions and nothing more. But it's about making the best decisions possible with imperfect information, maybe, but communicating honestly by keeping patients in the center of your choice. And looking back now, I can do this after this 4 years and a half. I'm incredibly proud of what our teams achieved, how we managed to demonstrate this resilience, professionalism, still that can exist in the country, in your operations, in your
Mhm.
company. The compassion under these conditions that none of us could have imagined just a few weeks earlier, February 2022, because simply we kept going, not perfectly, with mistakes, with fears, and still it is, but with some bigger purpose.
Anna, all I can say, and like I said, I connected with you first time when we met. You are so bold with your career choices, with your journey, and that's what connected me and drew me towards you so much. So yeah, my story also is very similar. Very early on in my career, I pledged my life and my career choices to patients and to serve patients. And ever since then, my decisions, my professional decisions, have been driven by patient centricity, being at the center stage. And and then we got affected by COVID, and it changed, I think, the way we all think
Yeah.
about healthcare. That's something that unifies all of us across the world. And it not only exposed um, how devoted, committed, and and go-getters our healthcare professionals are, but it also revealed to us the fragility of the system that we rely on so much. And that's the basis of our discussion today. Um, and for you specifically, I want to highlight that you have witnessed it even more. You have witnessed healthcare crisis during a war. Based on all these stressful conditions, what is your perspective? Is our healthcare system actually designed to save patients or to survive crisis? Elaborate on this from that unique lens that you have, that unique experience that you have, because some of us have just seen COVID times in our lifetime where there was real crisis to that level, but you have seen more, and I want you to be that voice today. So please
I
elaborate.
think that healthcare system they're trying to do both, and all of us can find the examples, positive, negative examples of how it's going to be, and it's implemented in each of the country, generally in the world. But during crisis, of course, we often see that protecting the system becomes the first priority. Patients may lose the access to appointments. As my work in clinical trials, we can see that participation in the trials may pause. And I've got this exact clear example from my work, from the Ukrainian case. Communication becomes more difficult. You mentioned about this COVID-19 pandemic. Many patients, they felt simply isolated because healthcare became focused on managing capacity instead of maintaining connection. So everything was focused how to adapt the facilities, how to make the proper equipment, how to train the staff. But where are these patients? This was the secondary question for everyone, especially during the first period of first months of this pandemic. But at the same time, we also saw positive changes, like this decentralization, digital visits, telemedicine, some remote visits, virtual visits. So actually, patients can continue more safely, more calmly their treatment in clinical trials and simply in healthcare. I've got this experience and this example, good example from my Ukrainian story about one of the girl who've been with oncology, and she been a participant of clinical trial in one of the sites in Ukraine, and this was literally her only one chance to survive because all of the previous schemes of chemotherapy, they were not successful, and all doctors said that unfortunately we couldn't help you, but just this one trial that was found during that period of time on the territory of Ukraine. She started this participation. She got a very positive outcomes, but then the war started, and she was informed that any shipments available anymore because the borders are closed. Sponsors, all of the pharma companies, they decided to stop the shipments. They decided to stop the clinical trials. So that's your last visit. We cannot help you anymore. And I was involved in this her transportation, transferring to sites in Poland. And we saw here how united people can be, because you can imagine we haven't got any guidelines, we haven't got any instructions, we haven't got anything actually developed how to take a person from one country with another language, not understanding the common language, the processes, nothing at all, and to move and to have this short window during which like usually 3 weeks during chemotherapy injections to arrange all of that. And this was a very clear example that our industry can be united. We can understand each other, we can help each other cross borders, cross sites, across countries. I don't know what will be the best word, but actually it has happened. So everything was adopted, everything was implemented in one country, in another country, so with sponsors, with global CRO offices. So everything was done, and we've got this successful story. Of course, we've got patients who were not able to be in time with this, because patients, they have this lack of information, as we said, about these crisis conditions. So we are focusing about systems, we are focusing on maintaining the data, but we are not focusing where this patient is. And of course, we've got positive these outcomes, like with this girl. So she's still alive, she's still living in Poland, she's active, she is receiving this treatment. But at the same time, we've got not positive results because we were not in time in transferring the patients. And so many patients, they were left not knowing about these opportunities, and we didn't know about them, that they are there, they are still waiting, they're still needed, this our support. So that's how it works. So we've got this example that we can work together, we can help each other, we can combine our forces and gain this patient centricity at the end. But at the same time, a lot of things, they are still remaining to be improved, to be worked on, and to be done.
Your response, Anna, transported me to the COVID times. The crisis, the anxiety, the the chaos around. This is so true, and I'm so glad to hear the success story of that patient. And we want to amplify and multiply that success. Um, so Ever since COVID times, building truly resilient healthcare means ensuring that patient experience remains a priority, not only in stable times, but especially during crisis. Because, like you said, the operational part, the system, the infrastructure, everything is being thought out, not just the stable times, but in crisis. But we are doing all of this for the patients, and we are not thinking about them during a crisis time when they also need the most support, the most care. So, my question is, why does patient experience still collapse first when healthcare is under stress? We are talking about that. Why do you think, from your lens, patient experience collapses the first before anything else collapses during a crisis?
Uh, in my opinion, patient experience usually suffers first because it's still seen as something extra instead of something essential, like something additional, like something that must be and
Good to
doesn't
have,
need.
but not
Yeah,
a
good to have.
necessity.
Yeah.
Oh my
But that
God.
yeah, that doesn't need to have this extra support, extra attention, because that's like there must be. Nothing with computer. Something may happen with systems. Something may happen with electricity, with I don't know technique. That's normal and that's understandable. But what may happen with patient,
Listen,
it's not understandable. He should be or she should be. Why not? And that's the main, I believe, gap. The main this misunderstanding, misalignment with the reality, with the human reality as a part of healthcare, as a part of clinical research even. And when hospitals or clinical research sites, they're under pressure, of course, they have this pressure from authorities, from government, all of this is, of course, it should be, it must be functional, it must be workable, but the focus naturally shifts to these operations, to numbers, to speed, to KPIs, depending on the business, private or state business it is. But for patients, the emotional even side of care matters just as much as this technical one, especially during the stressful moments, because during them, our patients, they are the most vulnerable part of the
yeah.
society. If you're healthy, at least you can resist the reality. I felt it on myself. But when you are ill, when you have this dependence on your treatment, on regular examinations, on receipts that you need to go to the chemistry each month or 2 times per month, and that's the most awful part, because you're losing the ground to live, to understand how you can survive, how you can manage your life during this crisis.
This discussion is even more important now because of what we are talking and what things are getting spoken about in this episode. So I want to focus on, we often talk about putting patients first. And I've myself said it, I hear it so many times, people say it, but the real test comes when healthcare systems are under pressure. If patient centricity disappears during a crisis, was it even truly embedded in the system? I doubt that. I question that. That's the kind of conversation I think we must have today. So, my question is patient centricity real or just a slogan healthcare uses when things are stable? What is your perspective? What is your thought?
It's a tricky question, and it's a difficult question, I must say, and probably without a real answer and the definite answer for it. But I still believe that patient centricity is real. It's not like our conversations, and we are not only ones with you who are touching this topic. We have a very cautious society, I mean, clinical research, medical society, healthcare society, who are usually raising these topics, and that's why
Yeah.
it cannot exist. It cannot disappear. Of course, patient centricity is real, but healthcare still has a long way to go in making it consistent. Probably that's the best word. So we, from time to time, we see these examples, we have these stories, we understand that it can work, it may work, but probably not constantly as it should be, not permanently as it must be. And it's easy to talk, of course, about this patient-centered care when systems are working normally, but of course the real test comes during these difficult times. And I can speak from the perspective of clinical trials, because from our point of view and how we work this patient centricity, that means designing the studies that people can realistically participate in, with flexible visits, clear communication, supporting their daily life and daily challenges, but not to be strictly filled in the schedule of the visits on the site level. So we, of course, we're struggling with this. We're still trying to put this site voice, patient's voice to our sponsors, to pharma companies who are developing these protocols, who are trying to engage people to participate in the clinical trial. And real patient centricity means this, that patients are included in decisions, not like only mentioned in the
Mhm.
presentations or some leaflets that we've got.
Beautiful. Yes, totally agree and totally aligned. So, Anna, crisis forces healthcare systems to make difficult decisions, and you touched upon it briefly. But they also reveal what we truly value. If we designed our response around patient needs, experiences, and outcomes from the very beginning, would our priorities and our decisions look different? That's the conversation we must explore because, like you said, we are trying to incorporate patient voice. Why don't we incorporate patient voice, patient needs, patient outcomes, what we want from the beginning? So, my question is what would healthcare look like if patients, not systems, set the rules during a crisis? Do you think that will ever happen? I open the stage for your comment.
But honestly saying, we're all patients. There is like this joke from among medical doctors. We haven't got healthy people. We have only badly examined. Yeah, so that's why we can say that actually we're all patients, because anyway,
Yeah,
every one of us, we visited hospitals. We've got some conditions, acute, chronic, doesn't matter. But all of us actually we've been in the shoes of the patient.
patients in the
Anyway,
waiting.
yeah, yeah, and anyway, so I believe that if and actually all of the people who are managing the systems, healthcare system, they're also patients overall,
Yes.
because they're also participate in some treatment options, someone even in clinical trials, someone just like a simple patients in the simple medical care. And but of course, when you're pressed probably by this environment, by regulations, by authorities, of course we should have rules, we should follow the rules, otherwise it will be a chaos around us. But of course we need probably to hear, when you're on your working positions, of course you have this pressure, you feel this pressure, and maybe you cannot feel from the point of the patient, because you are like, I don't know, someone, a person specialist performing his task as a professional task, receiving his salary for this, but not like being a patient to introduce some ideas or I don't know, or orders or rules or guidelines in your company, for example, or in your institution. That's why probably we need to have this like patient
Mm.
advocacy group, something like this, so someone who can come and pronounce the problems. And of course, if these people could be an essential or must be part of each of the decisions created in the healthcare, in our clinical research industry, of course, I believe it would become much more human, much more accessible, and much more flexible, because patients would not have to fight to get some information, to fight to have their place in the medical treatment option, to
Mm.
fight to receive some diagnostic procedure. We would have more possibilities for their families and someone who supports them to have this more easier access to participate in their treatment, in the treatment of their loved ones, of their family members. And the system would focus not only on treating this illness, but also on reducing fear, confusion, and stress for patients, and to gain more trust from them towards medical professionals.
Absolutely. You are touching upon such nuanced and such important aspects of patient centricity and patient care. Um, my next question sits very well as a follow up to that. In pursuit of faster systems, leaner processes, and measurable outcomes, we often celebrate efficiency as progress. But in my knowledge, especially during times of crisis, I would think that efficiency can overshadow empathy, communication, and human experience of care. This raises an important question about what we may be losing along the way. So, my question is, are we optimizing healthcare for efficiency at the cost of humanity? What do you think?
Another tricky, difficult question. Of course, sometimes yes. Healthcare systems are under huge this pressure to save time, to reduce costs, to manage large numbers of patients, but this can make care feel impersonal. And that's not only in our state institutions. I might say that it's also in the private clinics as well, because all of them, no, we should live. Of course, we should generate money. This is also economically important, even for each of the country, to have the businesses, to have the operations, let's call them in such a way. But of course, sometimes patients may feel that they are not a significant part of the cure process.
Mhm.
And patients often remember how they were treated emotionally, more than even by medical process itself, by the techniques, or was it the latest version of the MRI used, or just a simple one that
Absolutely.
was installed 10
Absolutely.
years ago there. And in clinical trials, for example, patients may feel like data points instead of people if communication is poor or if the process is too difficult. And this efficiency is important, but healthcare should never lose empathy and trust. And the best systems that these are ones that combine innovation with compassion. So anyway, we're in this artificial intelligence world, but we need to think that among these techniques, innovations, all of these chat GPTs and everything else, we've got people still around us.
So true, so beautiful. I want to end this soulful conversation with this question. What's the one flaw in healthcare system that crisis expose every single time? What is your perspective on this?
Mhm. I think that crises always expose how fragmented healthcare systems still are. Patients often have to repeat information, coordinate between providers themselves, or struggle with unclear discommunication with this, making some appointments, receiving the prescriptions on the drugs. And in clinical trials, this fragmentation can lead to these delays, patients dropouts, miss opportunities for people who need exactly this treatment, because sometimes we haven't got this time to discuss with patient all of the benefits, to convince to participate in the clinical research. And during stressful situations, these gaps become even more visible and more harmful for everyone. And it's also harmful for medical institution itself, because actually not having a proper treatment of the patient, also all your these KPIs, all your data, and even financial data, this will be damaged because you're losing the connection, the proper connection with the patient. And healthcare works best when systems, technology, and care teams are connected around the patient this journey, not around separate departments or around processes. But that's difficult. That's something that probably cannot be solved like in 1 minute or globally, worldwide. But anyway, if we want to understand at least the core of the problem, the root of the problem, how we can put some significant changes into the process, I believe that it will work, because as we discussed with you today, we've got these positive outcomes, we've got the successful stories with the happy ends. So why not to continue? Why not to duplicate them?
Absolutely. This is so correct and so true. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for bringing your wisdom. Thank you for bringing your perspective to this conversation, which is so important. And I cannot stress patient centricity should be our theme when we take those career decisions, those professional decisions, those medical decisions. So, absolutely thrilled to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you very much, and I am glad that your audience will also hear this our experience. Probably not the best one, and probably not the best stories that we should speak about. But anyway, we should be ready. If for someone hearing something from us will help to reconsider his or her daily work, what this person will start doing tomorrow, and maybe will try to reshape, rethink, resume his daily activities. That's was worth to have this, and that was worth to discuss and to remind people that we're all humans, and that's actually the main in the 21st century.
Beautiful, beautiful. Cannot emphasize that enough. We are all humans. Thank you all for joining us today. You heard Anna. We are all humans. So, on that, I will think that if you really liked our episode today and it resonated with you somewhere, and you're ready to pledge, and each one of you watching this episode, if we pledge that we are going to keep patient centricity at the center stage of all our decisions, mostly during difficult times, then I think we will see what real resilience in healthcare looks like. Until next time, stay tuned, stay informed, and stay engaged.